Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge, where, of course, those tariff tantrums have returned, despite the fact that the president's really not doing much today, but people are thinking he might, and that has markets a little on edge. Pete and I will break it down for you and say why all that glitters may indeed be gold on today's Rebel's Edge.
Welcome to 1975, Austin Powers and Powers. Excuse me while I change. I love gold.
Honestly, that's a classic.
I love gold. He starts peeling off pieces of skin and eating them. And everybody's like,
You need a good laugh on a day like today where the market off 350 on the NASDAQ and about 280 on the Dow right now, or 218 on the Dow. I mean, you got to get a little laugh.
we're trying to help you guys out all the time.
Yeah.
That's Pete Najarian. I'm Jon Najarian. Let's dive right into Macro Minute because we got so much to cover on gold, Pete.
Yep.
Macro Minute, I'm going to say retail sales, they were actually up almost 1.5% in March, exceeding expectations. Industrial production figures will be monitored, of course, closely as well. And that's my Macro Minute, Pete.
I think the macro took a page from something that I've actually liked a lot, John, which is earnings, and the fact that earnings have been saving the market. And I actually truly believe that. You go back to last week with Goldman Sachs, and this week you've got Bank of America, Citi, and the rest, travelers. But I'll tell you, John, it's gotten to be very, very difficult because of what's going on specifically with NVIDIA and the restrictions and the tariffs and all of that. So when you put that together along with AMD, that's what's really pushing the markets around right now. And specifically looking at the NASDAQ itself, it's a semiconductor issue that is going to be a bit of a problem until it's fixed.
Indeed. Well, fantastic future, Pete. We've already led in with gold. We're going to stay on the gold topic, and I'm going to say gold traded up $100 an ounce today from roughly 3,240, something like that, Pete, to nearly $100 higher. So we'll touch more on gold, but that's what I'm focused on.
And John, I'm going to talk about the VIX just because of the fact of where we have been, and it's been all over the place. But Friday, we got all the way down. We were towards that 32 level. On Monday, we bounced around a little bit between 30 and 34. Tuesday, 28 to 30, because we did get down to 28. Today, it's a little bit different, a little bit of a move, but not a huge move by any stretch, John. And I think that's something that's pretty important. Last I looked, it was trading, call it a little bit above 30. And I think that actually makes sense for where we are in the market right now. So I think we keep an eye on that volatility index because that will be what leads us to the next levels of where this market's going, whether that's up or down.
Yeah, for sure, Pete. Well, let's dive into GLD, gold. GLD is, of course, one of many ETFs. You could talk GDX, which is the miners. And boy, talk about the miners, Pete. Look at some of the performances here because IAG was up 9%. It's up 60% year to date. If you look at that chart that we're putting up there, the chart shows that Anglo Gold, up strong, up 60%, but Harmony is up 127% year to date. AU is up 101%. So when you see those kinds of moves, Pete, it's pretty clear that people are buying the precious metal as a safe haven, and I think they're right.
Yeah, we've been seeing this and watching this happen, John, for quite a while. And by the way, we have had so much unusual option activity, which is what leads us along our way, right? Our path of the markets. It has been on fire, absolutely on fire. And it's something I think that people really have to understand, that it isn't just one name, and it's not just gold itself. Gold itself is actually pretty impressive. It's up 27% year to date. I mean, that's a big number, 3% today. Last I looked, I think it was somewhere with the new 52-week high, but it was 33, 36 or something like that. Anyway, you've also some of the names that you brought up, John, but how about Hecla? How about Kinross? How about Barrick Gold? How about Sandstorm Gold? All of these, Anglo, throw in Nucor. Across the board, we have seen unusual option activity in every one of those names. And of course, as you mentioned, GLD. And that says a lot when they just attack an area. Sometimes it's energy. Sometimes it's semiconductors. Sometimes it's just technology itself. But right now, it's all about precious metals, specifically gold.
Well, the GDX, for instance, Pete, we had unusual buying when it was 41 for April 50s. Those expire this week. We had the May 50s being bought in big numbers also when the stock was just below 46. Today, it's trading up through 52, Pete. So you look at how these things are performing. IAG, we had it since the low sixes. You look at something like the GLD, we had it at 297-ish, 60,000, 50,000 options go off at the May 305 and then the June 310 strikes. Yeah, people are betting pretty big that this thing continues to move to the upside. So all we'll say is that you guys should be paying attention when something like that's happening.
Yep.
All right, let's talk now, Pete, about AMD, because as you said, the government is going to require licenses to export certain chips, and that's going to affect these guys unless they can put this trade war behind us, because AMD says it could cost them, close to 800 mil if they indeed need to not sell these chips over in China where the demand is.
No doubt about that, John. I think it's absolutely incredible, some of the numbers that are getting thrown out there. We heard some of the numbers about NVIDIA. Now you're hearing about $800 million in terms of some of the restrictions that are going on with AMD. It's a stock, John, that's struggled all year, actually. Year to date, it's down 26%. It's down 6% today. Still has that PE level that gets attractive, but they've got to show us that they can get out of the woods, because right now they're stuck in the woods. And I think the problem is, and I saw that a Citi analyst out there revising AMD, Broadcom, and throw in Micron, and those revisements are meaningful. And I think that's something that we're going to all have to pay attention to as well, because this is going to cut into that earnings, that profits that everybody's looking for. And that's going to be a problem, not just for NVIDIA, but also for AMD and multiple other names like I just listed.
No doubt. Well, Pete, take a look at United Airlines. Yeah. Now, on a down day, fairly big down day, this is one of them fighting the trend. It was $67 a share last night. It traded to 71, I believe, today, Pete, after it opened and ran to the upside. And it's given a lot of that back. And that's basically the broad market pushing on it. People willing to take profits there at 68, 69, 70, and so forth. But pretty nice numbers out of United. And the CEO gave guidance, Pete, and the guidance was two different types. He gave guidance for one with a normal scenario, and the other with what we've got right now, which is uncertain scenario.
Yeah, basically he's looking and saying, hey, look, if we have a recession, this is what it looks like. And as a matter of fact, those numbers look like, well, $7 to $9, John, is what they put up there. If it's not a recession, it's $11.50 to $13.50. So it's a big difference, right? I mean, when you go back to it, but here's what I'd like to point out, and you just pointed it out earlier as well. But everything we hear constantly about the conviction that people have, the sentiment that they have is so awful, right? And then meanwhile, we come out and what do we see with retail sales? Well, I think we're seeing that across a lot of different areas, John. And I don't know what they're doing to get the sentiment to get as bad as it has been across the board. But you look at the retail sales, something doesn't mix. And I would say that even let's throw in the airlines for that as well, because a lot of folks were saying, well, not enough people are going to be flying. Well, so far, so good. It looks like it was pretty damn good. As a matter of fact, you look at these earnings, John, 91 cents, they were looking for 74. The revenue was up 5.5% a year. I'd say those are pretty damn good numbers, at least for now, but I can understand why the CEO wanted to be cautious, because these are very different times, and this whole thing with the tariff and all that at some point in time could be something that is very, very concerning. So I think that it's smart to have given those two. It's a unique thing to see somebody like that to put out there that we're going to have one of two scenarios. But understandably, I get it. I get why he said that.
Well, let's take one quick look, Pete, at Travelers. Again, a stock, an insurance company, of course, that we don't talk about all that much. It doesn't hit very often on unusual activity, and I'm not going to highlight anything in there today about that. But I will say, for a company that's dealing with insurance claims from Florida, Pete, Georgia, North Carolina, of course, California, the stock is up almost 4% today. It's up almost 7% year to date. So a lot of people's, knee-jerk reaction is to sell the insurance stocks when a disaster hits. And for the most part, the exact opposite is true. You buy it on that dip because they're going to make bank because they've already taken a huge write-down as soon as that storm or whatever it is, fire hits.
Yep, it's unbelievable. And you look at the earnings, John, $1.91 versus 81 cents. Really? I mean, that's not crushing it. That's absolutely demolishing it. And it's unbelievable. And then you look at the PE of this company, it's only at a 13, John. I look at all the various things that you look at the free cash flow, $16 billion. You look at the revenue, it's up 5% year over year. All these numbers, this might be the best earnings I've ever seen from a company because they've beaten in every single category in something, as you point out, that a lot of people were probably pretty cautious of. But it's interesting just to see what they were able to do this past quarter, given all of these unbelievable situations that they've had to face over the last, call it 3 months, 6 months, whatever, however you want to do that. But they also, by the way, they raised the dividend. So not only are they crushing it on all different areas, but they raised the dividend. Yeah, I mean, this was an incredible quarter for Travelers, and it's one of those where I'm just sitting there just marveling at what they were able to put up. I've never seen anything quite like that one.
That's right. Top line, bottom line, guidance, dividend.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else?
I think they should put that one up on the CEO's wall of fame. All right. Pete, what do you got as far as the NCAA football as opposed to NFL for a change?
Well, we wanted to go to college football, and here's why, John. It's the kickoff of the spring transfer portal, and it's a big deal because you and I, just the other day, we were talking about this quarterback from Tennessee. He's getting $2 million a year. He decided he was going to sit out and try to force them to give him $4 million a year. Well, they didn't jump on that at all. Matter of fact, Heupel said, good luck to you. The tight end said, hey, we're here because we want to be here. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on, and a lot of people are stepping into this conversation about what this quarterback was doing. And, he had good numbers, John. Is he a great quarterback? I think he's a very, very good quarterback, and he'll probably do very well. He's got a lot of talent, so let's give him all that. But it's still one of those things where really that's what NIL has come to. Well, now you've got this portal. We'll see where he ends up. We'll see how much money he gets. And there's a lot of other players out there as well, John. That big running back that Cal Berkeley's got, Ott, is a total stud. He was an All-American as a freshman. He put up unbelievable numbers, 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns his sophomore year. And now he's transferring from Cal because, like everybody else, everybody wants to get a little bit more money, John. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you followed this part of it, but the new GM at Stanford decided to fire the head coach just a few weeks ago, Troy Taylor. So he's gone. Well, there's a lot of players hit that portal as soon as that happened, but they have a linebacker out there, John, who's absolutely spectacular for Stanford. He said, you know what? I'm out. And you know where he went? He went to a school. Now, I'll let you take a guess if you want. There are 5 schools presently in the portal that are the top 5 in terms of the talent levels in which they've gotten out of the portal already. This kid went to the number 1. You know who it is off the top of your head? You want to take a guess at who's leading in the portal of what they've signed already, which started basically today?
I'd say Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon would be tops.
I probably would have done the same.
Maybe Texas too, Texas.
I probably would have done the same on all those because of the money. You and I both know how this whole game works in the portal, right? These guys want more money like that quarterback at Tennessee. Well, the reality is Texas Tech. Texas Tech, John, is sitting at number 1, followed by LSU, Ole Miss, Oregon and then Miami. So Ohio State didn't make it, but Oregon did. But here's the interesting thing about Texas Tech. They have already signed 18 transfers this spring. So gives you a little bit of an idea of where they decided to go and the money that they've been able to put in there for NIL to enhance the opportunity for players to come there. And that's exactly where this linebacker, David Bailey, who is a total stud, John. The kid had 81 pressures, 22 and a half tackles for loss, 14 and a half sacks in the last 3 years. Pretty nice numbers that he's been putting up. Well, he's going to be putting those numbers up for Texas Tech this year because they've got all the money in the world. But what do you think about this spring portal? And is there anybody else that might surprise you that's in there? Because I'm shocked just like you. I would have said Georgia, Bama, probably, maybe a Florida, or whomever. But to see Texas Tech at the top, not Texas, is amazing, followed by LSU and followed by Ole Miss and followed by – Ole Miss makes a lot of sense. They got a hell of a lot of money, man. They got money to throw at whoever they want.
Well, it kind of shows that kid that was going to Stanford is a smart kid too, though.
Yes.
Because California, at the millions that he might make in his next year, because he might only play 3, as you and I know. Some of these guys leave right away, but he might play through 3 years unless he's just making so much money that he has to stay for his 4th. But he's going to give up about 50%, 51% in Cal.
Yep.
And some of that's federal, of course, some of it's state, and Cal is a high tax state. On the other hand, Florida, like you said, with Miami, and Texas Tech in Texas, really low tax. In fact, 0. So, if he gets a $2 million deal, Pete, the $160,000 that he saves in California state tax, plus some of the millionaire tax as well, could push it up to close to $200,000. He could buy a nice, car.
Yeah.
Or put a down payment on a jet, just with the savings from that. So I don't know that Texas Tech is quite the same environment as Stanford, or the same prestige to the degree, but I don't think he was thinking about staying for the degree in any case, Pete. So I think he's a pretty smart kid to, make an extra 200 moving to Texas.
This sure does. And I hadn't even thought about that, John, even though, you and I have talked about California and taxes and so forth. And it's not just California, it's Minnesota, it's New York, whatever, where you've got higher taxes versus either very low or 0 state taxes. That is a factor that I think that these players probably are thinking about. I hope that they are and understand it. But, it's just amazing. I mean, this portal and the NIL money and all of this has certainly changed college sports. Let's go to the NHL.
By the way, Pete, real quick, Nico at the quarterback at Tennessee. Tennessee is a 0 tax state. So he might find, if he goes to, for instance, a state that has 5 to 8% or whatever tax, maybe a millionaire's tax on top of it, that he might not be making quite as much as he thinks. If he can get anywhere towards 4, above 3, or above 2 that they were paying him, I get it. He's still making a lot more money, but I think he'll be surprised how much the taxes are.
Yeah, I think you're right. John, how about we just finish up with the NHL? And I'm just going to say, Marc-Andre Fleury, you were a goalie once in your life. And John was a damn good goalie. He understood the game of hockey. I played a little bit of hockey until I got to high school, and I went, ta-ta. I went to basketball. But this guy, John, he's 40 years old. He was the number 1 pick in the draft back in 2003. Marc-Andre Fleury is considered one of the top 10 goalies of all time. And certainly by a lot of people, some people slide him up, maybe it's even higher than top 10. Maybe he's a top 5 or something like that, because he's had an incredible career. People, they love him, his former teammates and so forth. And I think even the adversaries, a lot of those guys just have all the respect for this guy, because it was a craft that he created back there between the pipes. An amazing guy, spent a big portion of his career with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pretty cool. He's got a great family. And you know what? It might have been his final start, or in hockey. But we're talking about Aaron and how they compare to some of the people of the past. Well, this is a guy now career. This is where it's going to end. And unfortunately, unless something wild, this is going to end pretty quick because unfortunately it has done that for a lot of years. But this guy has been a remarkable goalie for his entire career and has really helped out the Minnesota Wild, and that's where he's going to be retiring from. But pretty exciting, isn't it, John, to see a guy that's had this many years in the NHL?
Yeah, and Ovechkin said just that too, Pete, and a whole bunch of others. But
yeah.
I did see a video of Ovechkin, of course, one of the greats to play as well, just broke Gretzky's record, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But he had his whole team wait because they were all heading into the locker room after the game, and he said, "Stop. We got to go shake his hand." That's one of the best that's ever played. And that was nice tribute.
Yeah. That's the way it should be, man. I mean, it's, when it's all said and done, and you and I both played linebacker and you know what, talked a lot of crap throughout the game, but as soon as it's over, you know what, those guys are your buddies, they really are. But during the game, you want to take their head off. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's what football's all about. But you know what, you always have respect. And whether it's, a guy like a Walter Payton or a Barry Sanders or whomever, you always want to have respect for what a lot of these players have been able to accomplish in their careers, for sure.
Yep, truly. And like you said, a great human too, as well as a great hockey player. All right. Well, folks, we will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Well, John froze up. I think what's happening is he's got a guy up above him right now who's doing his floors, and he's causing some mayhem. So John got bumped out. That being said, we'll see you at 1 p.m. tomorrow. It's going to be another great one on the Rebels Edge.